Hello again. We are Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr of Southeastern 14 here to preview SEC Hoops action Saturday, January the 20th. We are going to be previewing 4 games. We have already previewed Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky, and Ole Miss, Auburn in separate videos, so you can get those on the channel. That leaves us with Florida's road trip to Missouri, South Carolina at Arkansas, Vanderbilt at Mississippi State, and Texas A&M at LSU. Before we get to those, a reminder, these predictions brought to you by BetOnline. With NFL playoffs here and the NBA season in full swing, BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores, with additional odds, lines, trends, and info. On both desktop and mobile, you can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today, get in on the action, see all the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. We will start where the games start in Saturday. That is in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where the Razorbacks come off a thrilling win over Texas A&M. South Carolina coming off a disappointing loss to Georgia. You may catch this one on the SEC Network at noon Central. We do not have lines as we are doing this, but we've got an estimate of what the line might look like. We take BPI, Bart Torvik, and Ken Pomeroy and average that. Those 3 computers average Arkansas as about a 2-point favorite with a 58% chance to win. Blake, the Must Bus has been the source of much entertainment across this channel the last couple of years. Did the Must Bus get its GPS back? Did it get fresh tires? Did it stocked up with corn nuts and all the things that we're just accustomed to the Must Bus having? Or was what we saw with the Razorbacks fool's gold?
I'd love to tell you the answer to that, but I don't know the answer. So I am curious to see what happens in this game, because this game will tell us a lot more, I think. Because as I said going in, none of us were going to predict it, but because what we had seen in the previous 3 games. But let's not act like that wasn't the ultimate setup, like we said, for Arkansas. A&M's coming off a huge win. Arkansas, Coleman's not playing. Like, it was there for Arkansas to take it, and luckily they did, with Mark hitting the shot, at the end. And but I mean, it's one of the. By the way, too, on the Mark thing, I know Max, like, we had like people asking us why we didn't draft Tremont Mark this week, but like I said it, I flat out said, look, there was nothing I trusted about Arkansas going into this week based on the 3 games we had seen previously. Even as solid as he had been, as good as he's been, it's just like I was too worried about the possibility of Arkansas having another one of those games, but they didn't. Now they get a South Carolina team at home that is without Miles Studi for a couple weeks, so that takes out one of the big 4, as I like to label them. But there are other guys stepping up for South Carolina. The problem is, I just think offensively right now it's a bit of a grind. And if you take out one of your better shooters and one of your better scorers, I think it becomes even more of a grind here. So I'm curious to see what South Carolina does on the offensive side of the floor, because, they've not been as good lately as they were previously. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it's one where, again, I think rebounding will play a big factor in this game, one way or the other, just because these are 2 teams that, based on how they shoot it at times, they're going to need some extra opportunities, I think, on the offensive glass and those kind of things. Now, Arkansas doesn't get a ton of offensive rebounds, but South Carolina does. And so I'm curious to see kind of in the paint what this game looks like.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at with this game, that Tremont Mark shot makes this thing way more interesting. If he misses that shot, I have a completely different outlook on this game. Few different things I'm looking at. First off, we just got to talk about South Carolina's road woes. Lost by 5 at Clemson. They won against ECU. They were down by 3 with 4 minutes left. They lose by 27 to Alabama, and then they beat Missouri when they were down by 5 with 2:20 left. So in their 4 true road games, nothing has been convincing. And now you got to go on the road for the first time without Miles Studi. Blake, I know you mentioned him. You've been all over the Big Four, and now that is really impacted. Yes, they have other guys that can step up, but that kind of hurts when BJ Mack is 3 of 18 from 3 in SEC play. He's not shooting the ball well either. So you lose one of your best shooters, and then one of your other ones is in a big slump. So there's a few things going against South Carolina here, right? As far as for South Carolina, Arkansas lives at the free throw line. I mean, we were just up until what felt like 4 a.m. watching the Arkansas A&M game with all those fouls. But this is a South Carolina defense that defends without fouling. You have a very low foul rate. So you have angles on both sides here that are in play. This game is a lot more interesting now that Tremont Mark made that shot.
All right, let's do picks. I'll start us off. You guys both mentioned things that are key. No Miles Studi for South Carolina. I think that's a significant loss. Obviously, number 2, Max, you mentioned foul shooting.
Yes.
And that South Carolina does not foul a lot. Well, on the other hand, this game is in Fayetteville, and Arkansas is number 4 in the country, according to KenPom, in free throw attempts to field goal attempts. Oof. So home whistle is a factor in the SEC this just in. Number 3, what I have held against Arkansas was not that I thought Arkansas was terrible when it comes to talent. Now, we've had the questions about shooting. We've talked about those, but I thought before the season, if it all goes well, this is potentially a top 10 team in the country. It's not been that. But my thing was, does this Arkansas team want to play? Is it dialed in? Is it interesting? Is it interested in being there? And last time out, we saw a team that was interested enough to beat a quality Texas A&M team, albeit without Henry Coleman III. That checks the box for me. The last time we saw Arkansas, it was interested enough to win a competitive basketball game. Maybe that looks differently on Saturday. Maybe they don't show up. Maybe it was just a blip. But based on all that, I'm going Arkansas. Blake, you're next.
I told Ed, the Arkansas fan, that I would not pick Arkansas the rest of the season. So, I'm sorry, Ed. I'm picking Arkansas. I don't like the spot for South Carolina. Arkansas just came off the win. Like I said, this could be where the Muss Bus gets going here. I said it before the Texas A&M game. Could keep cruising here. They should. I think they should beat South Carolina. I still think with Studi's injury, I think that plays a role here a little bit because, again, South Carolina, I think, is going to need to shoot the ball well, and they just have not been able to do that on the road here in SEC play. Again, 5 of 25 at Alabama, 7 of 24 at Missouri. They won that game against Missouri, but I think this is a different challenge. And even, like we said, even the last 3 games, 5 of 25, 7 of 24, 6 of 26. If you're not getting to the free throw line in this game, which I think will be tough, just limits your scoring upside here. So Hogs may come out finally a little bit of momentum and get the win.
Yeah, Muss was talking about getting their swagger back, and how they just lost all their confidence. And I think they've got it back. Maybe not all of it back, but definitely a big piece of, just expecting to win and stuff like that. It would be one thing if if South Carolina had a really good shooter that's going to come in and replace Miles Studi, but it'll probably be a mix of Jacoby Wright and Zachary Davis. Both shoot under 30% from 3. So it's not like you're going to maintain the 3-point percentage that Studi has. So yeah, I'm gonna complete the sweep here and go Arkansas at home, just with how poorly South Carolina has been on the road, plus now first time without Studi. I think it's a perfect storm here for Arkansas.
Next up, Vanderbilt, which lost in Nashville to Auburn in a game that really wasn't competitive in the second half, faces Mississippi State, which just lost in Lexington in a game that was maybe briefly competitive in the second half, but not entirely unexpected based on that series history for Mississippi State to go up there and lose I'm going to say decidedly. That happens to teams in Lexington. Throw that aside. Mississippi State's a pretty good team. You look at the computers. Again, we do not have lines as we're doing this, but averaging BPI, Bart Torvik, Ken Pomeroy, the Bulldogs should be about 17-point favorites. I'm guessing it's going to be a little lower than that with a 94% chance to win. Guys, this is hard to see Vanderbilt hanging with Mississippi State. I know the Commodores, they've got one quality post guy in Vin Allen Lubin, who's had some health issues this year. Toulouse Smith, one of the best posts in the SEC. State, not one of the better shooting teams in the league necessarily, but neither is Vanderbilt. Hard to see a competitive game script here.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go ahead and make our picks. I'm picking Mississippi State. I mean, I don't know what the path to victory is for Vanderbilt. I'm looking, I'm trying to find it, and I just don't see it. I tend to think this is one of those matchups that just, I don't know. I mean, we said that about other teams too. Alabama, Auburn, tough matchups for different reasons for Vanderbilt. I think this is a tough matchup for another different reason. Like, I think it's just, we talked about the scoring limitations, I think, for them. And Mississippi State is really good defensively. And we've seen, that Mississippi State team, beat Tennessee at home. I know they lost to Alabama at home, but again, I think that was more about Alabama. And so I'm sorry. I don't have great analysis for this game. I just think it's one where Vanderbilt is away from home. They've made it a bit of a grind for LSU and Ole Miss, at certain instances. And again, the Memphis game, they played well. So, they haven't played terrible on the road. I think we have to point that out. And I keep saying, it's not like Vanderbilt's just getting blown out by anybody yet to this point in terms of, SEC play. So my guess is somehow they find a way to keep this close. And it's probably through Mannion or Lawrence. But beyond that, you've got Rivera Torres has to have a huge game. Somebody else has got to have a huge game. You've got to have all the pieces that connect because, as always, winning in Starkville is not easy to do. Although it's kind of interesting to note that I think Vanderbilt has won 1, 2, 3. Never mind. They've not had a lot of success there. Just kind of looking at the recent history. So I think they've only won once in Starkville since 2013. And then just a quick sidebar here. Speaking of that 2013 game, does anyone want to predict what the final score was between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State in 2013? Just give me 2 sets of numbers.
70-40.
Ooh.
Oh, that would have been a excuse me. I think that would have been a grinded out error for both teams. I'm going to go 51-48ish.
No, Max was much closer.
Oh.
Vanderbilt 72, Mississippi State 31.
Woo! No, one team grinded it out.
Remember that game? Man, that was Chris, you want to guess who the leading scorer was for Vanderbilt in that game?
Dijon Parker.
I could give you 100 guesses and you would never guess it. Although he was on that team.
Yeah, I think I can picture him and I can't think of his name.
Kevin Bright.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Kevin Bright had 15. Thinking. Rod Odom had 13. Sheldon Jeter had 11. Josh Henderson, 8-year pro, had 8 points. Josh Henderson played at Vanderbilt for a decade. But
I'd forgotten Kevin Bright even played at Vanderbilt.
That was the best I have on this game. I'm sorry. Was the series history, and Mississippi State's been pretty successful there in Starkville, again, against a lot of teams. But, that's kind of where we are. I think this is a tough one for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, there's not much to take away from the numbers here. Pretty much with every Vanderbilt game, it's going to be hard to look at the numbers because they're not going to be favored pretty much in any category, but they just find a way to make it close. 2 things I'm looking at here. The one thing is, say Mississippi State goes on the road and beats Kentucky, and then they've got Florida and Auburn next. I would be like, oh, well, geez, they might be overlooking this Vandy team and coming off of a huge win and looking forward. This might get a little tricky here, but since they've lost their last 2, they're going to be doing everything they can to win this game, and just the motivation is going to be there for Mississippi State. And then the other thing is just Stack and Chris, you've been all over this too, is how Stack almost, kind of seems like he's already trying to work for next year and get these new freshmen in, and he's starting younger guys. Tolu Smith, 250-pound senior. Jimmy Bell, 280-pound senior. Cameron Matthews, 230-pound senior. Jeffries, 220-pound senior. It is not a great matchup here for the youngsters of Vanderbilt. I think it's going to be a little bit of a men against boys type of thing as far as physicality is concerned. So, yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt, they find a way to muck it up and create close games here on the road. But I find it hard to really see a path to victory for them here. I'm going Mississippi State.
Yeah, if you're new to the channel, Blake and I are both from the Nashville area, so we follow that program. And the excuses have been flying. We can't get transfers in. I'm going to go to a youth movement. They're just not very good. Now, look, Jerry Stackhouse has not done a very good job at Vanderbilt outside of maybe the last month and a half of each of the last 2 seasons. But what Vanderbilt does do, I mean, you go back and look in his tenure, the times where they get beat by 20 or 30 points are few and far between. They find a way to keep games close. The computers have this at 17. I would bet that the line is probably closer to 13-ish maybe. And that's probably what will happen. It'll probably be a little closer than people think, but I don't think they've got the horses to win. And if they do, it's probably a recipe that we didn't cover here other than Blake bringing up Lawrence and Mannion. So in that case, let's move on to the next game as we all go with Mississippi State. This is interesting. Texas A&M coming off a heartbreaker, and frankly, the Aggies need to start winning some games for the sake of that NCAA tournament resume. Playing an LSU team which has gotten better with Jalen Cook back. Jordan Wright had most weeks an SEC Player of the Week type game. The competition for that this week is going to be stiff, but he had 7 steals and 20-something points. Guys, I said this before last game against Ole Miss. I said this team has been pretty tough. It's getting better, and it's been pretty tough at home. The computers have got this as – now this is wild. BPI has got A&M as nearly a 3-point favorite. Bart Torvik has got LSU as about a half-point favorite, and Ken Pomeroy has got Texas A&M is about a 2-point road favorite. Average that up, and the Aggies are about 1.5-point favorites with a 55% chance to win. I've been starting with Blake on our breakdowns, but this time I'll start with you, Max.
Well, like we're going to start seeing with Texas A&M, and we did through the whole non-conference with Tyrese Radford, it's going to be hard to preview this team because we don't have injury reports. Mm-hmm. So I have no clue if Henry Coleman's going to play in this game or not, and that has a pretty large impact on the outcome, especially playing away from home and playing an LSU team that has some good size with Fountain and Will Baker, and then you've got guys like Hunter Dean coming in, and they've got size, they've got depth of size too, and so you're gonna need a guy like Henry Coleman in this game. It's a little bit interesting because you have one team coming off of like a brutally bad shooting night in Texas A&M, and then you have a team coming off an insanely hot shooting night in LSU. So I kind of expect water to find its level there, and then A&M's probably going to shoot a little bit better, and I bet LSU doesn't shoot. What'd they shoot against Ole Miss? Like 50% from 3. I think it was 48%. So are they going to repeat 48% from 3? Probably not. I think this thing's going to be just razor close. I think Solo Washington on Jordan Wright, if he stays out of foul trouble, which he hasn't really been able to do yet. But that's a good matchup. Washington's probably A&M's best perimeter defender. So I can't find much to separate these two teams, Blake. Are you finding anything?
Yes. LSU plays at home.
All right, there's the answer.
And I know it didn't apply in the first game, but I just think LSU, Mississippi State, Texas A&M is coming off of losing at the buzzer in brutal fashion. And now they got to travel on the road to play a team that is as confident as they've been all season. They have more momentum than they've had all season. And we saw what LSU did to him the first time around. We can always play up like the revenge factor and all this other stuff, but I'm not really buying it, to be honest. Like I could Texas A&M win this game? Sure they could, but I'm learning from what we're seeing in the SEC, and in all honesty, it's like the LSU win at Texas A&M has been like the complete outlier at this point. But yet sometimes a team just has another team's number, and I don't know. I like the way this LSU team's playing, and if you look at how they played at home, like they have played really well. And if you look at Texas A&M, again, we have what they did to Kentucky, but otherwise, if you take what they've done on the road over the past little while, yeah. The thing I always worry about in picking against Texas A&M is the fact that they have Wade Taylor, and it's like he can do exactly what he did against Arkansas and put them in a position to win the game. That worries me a little bit, but we're just making picks here for fun. And so if we're doing that, I'm going to take a chance and pick LSU at home because I just saw them beat this team by 15 2 weeks ago on the road. And I think matchup wise, LSU can do a lot of the same stuff in terms of holding them down. I mean, again, this is a bad 3-point shooting team for Texas A&M. Now you got to go on the road and hope for a better shooting performance when the only good shooting performance they've had in a month is against Kentucky at home. Everything else tells us that they're not going to shoot it well here. 5 of 28 against LSU the first time around, 3 of 19 against Auburn on the road, 6 of 29 against Arkansas on the road. They don't have to shoot the three well. I'm just pointing out, but you can't trust them, when it comes to shooting the ball. And so because of that, I'm not saying LSU is the best offensive team in the world, but they're better than they were without Jalen Cook. Jordan Wright has been on his game. And yeah, I think I'll take a shot on picking LSU here, even if the computers tell me that I shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm going to add to what Blake said. We kind of buried the lead. These teams played once, and LSU won that by 15 at Texas A&M. I've watched a lot of A&M, and I think Wade Taylor is a phenomenal player, but especially without Coleman, it has been a do-it-yourself type scenario every game. And he might get 40 points, but he might need 40 shots to do it. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. But the issue for them is, just as we have said, continually shooting. Tyrese Radford, effective field goal percentage of 41.8%. That's just poor. And I'm not bagging on Radford. I look around, and it hurts when you're a high volume shooting guy and other guys aren't making shots. You sort of suffer. So I'm not pointing the finger at Tyrese Radford. I don't know if he's a culprit or a symptom, but I think even if Henry Coleman III is available in this game, the shooting from the guard spots has been so spotty's not even the word. It's been consistently bad. The way LSU is playing, give me the Tigers also. So I believe that's a clean sweep for LSU.
I was going to go LSU. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I inadvertently skipped you, but listening to your remarks, I thought you were leaning the same way.
Yeah. I'm
okay. Last up, we've got Florida's trip to Columbia, Missouri. That is going to be 7 Central. You may catch that game on ESPNU. The computers, as we're doing this, have got Florida is about a 3-point favorite with a 61% chance to win on the road. I'll be honest, guys. I don't know what I'm going to pick. I'm probably going to listen to you guys break this down and look up some things myself as we go, because I don't think Missouri is anywhere near what it was a year ago. The results haven't been great, but this is a team that seems to hang in there. I know that Alabama game was closer probably than the final score indicated. And the computers love Florida. We love that roster. We've talked about them all year. I think this is a very talented basketball team. But the computers loved Florida a year ago too, up until really late in the season. And this team just could not find the resume wins to match it. Florida still really, I guess, lacking one of those as we head into the weekend. I'll pull this up just for certainty, but I mean, their best win so far at Pitt. That's now, I think, about 2 months in the rearview mirror. It's been a minute. Blake, I'll let you start. I could make a case for either team in this game.
I'm picking Florida. Just get right to it. We got a mailbag to do. The Gators, I think the rebounding is going to be the difference here. That's where I think Florida gets that extra opportunity somewhere along the way, and I would expect this to be a close game. But this feels similar to me to like the South Carolina game for Missouri, even though I think Florida's a better offensive team than South Carolina. But we saw one of the differences in that game was what South Carolina had 15 second chance opportunities off the 15 offensive rebounds. So they turned it over a lot. They didn't shoot it well. But the issue with Missouri has been that they don't shoot it well. And that's the difference. It's just I don't know what you're getting offensively from Missouri right now. And that's where I get a little concerned because we know they're not able to make it up defensively the way they were last year because of how they were forcing turnovers and those kind of things. They're still forcing turnovers, don't get me wrong. But again, they don't have that same offensive punch. And I think Florida, even though they've struggled a little bit, they've still put up a lot of points, except for what? Against Tennessee on the road. So if we take that out of the mix, Florida can still score the ball. And I know they gave up 103 to Ole Miss on the road. Still scored 85, right? They scored 85 against Kentucky. They scored 90 against Arkansas. I just don't know that I think Missouri can keep up necessarily because I do think Florida's going to find some extra chances to score the points here. It'd be different if Florida wasn't a good offensive rebounding team. Then I'd be like, I don't know that I trust Florida to come in here and shoot the ball well because they're not a great shooting team. But even if they don't shoot it well, I still think there's a big discrepancy in terms of their offensive rebounding numbers and the amount of offensive rebounds that Missouri is capable of giving up. And so because of that, I will pick Florida, but I don't do it with confidence, even though it sounded like it, because Florida, again, is not a good shooting team. They are terrible from the free throw line. They only shoot 66.9%. And they're also a team that really doesn't force many turnovers. So Missouri will have chances offensively, but I think Florida size is the difference here.
And to compound that rebounding discrepancy you were talking about, Blake, Missouri has allowed in-conference opponents to shoot just under 40% from three too. So those offensive rebound kick-out threes are just going to be poor. But if you look at if you're looking at positives for Missouri, Florida has played in 3 true road games this year, and they have lost by an average margin of 16 points in those 3 true road games. They have not even held a true road game within single digits. All 3 have been double-digit, pretty handily defeats. And Florida's defense gives up the highest, like in terms of point distribution from 3, 2, and free throws. They give up the highest amount of 2-pointers. That's exactly what this Missouri offense likes to do with Sean East and Tamar Bates. So I see clear paths for both teams. Florida could have just crushed the boards, knocked down some threes. Missouri can't keep up. But also Florida has stunk on the road, and they haven't even really made it close yet. So I'm going Missouri. I'm staying with the trend. Florida has not proven to me once this year that they can play on the road or even make it close on the road. So I'm going Missouri here in a bit of a desperation spot for this team.
All right, a correction from earlier. I said Florida won at Pitt. That was a mistake. That was a neutral site game at the Barclays Center in New York. So, Max, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit on road performances. No, look, those teams are all better than Missouri. And I was just about ready to go Florida. And then I looked at Missouri. This team has lost 7 of 8 games, the only win in that being Central Arkansas. It has lost now this year home games to Memphis, Jackson State, Georgia, and South Carolina. So I don't know what to do, but you know what I'm going to do? I need more faith in Florida. I need to see them win a game like this. I'm going Missouri and Dennis Gates at home for lack of a better idea. Don't have a strong feel on it.
Come on. Let's go. Come on.
So I love it when a plan comes together here.
Oh, yeah.
No, here it is.
I pick Florida. You two guys pick Missouri. It's all setting up perfectly. Missouri fans, you're welcome. We did the reverse mojo. We're trying to bring it back. I told you I wasn't going to do it again, but I know these two schlubs. They're picking Missouri. I knew it. Chris acted like he was going back and forth. I knew he was picking Missouri. So we're going to give this another try. We're just going to keep doing this until Missouri wins a game. So there you go.
So for the record, that's Max and I on Missouri and you on Florida?
That is correct.
Okay.
A clean sweep.
What?
Yeah, it's a clean sweep for Missouri.
Oh, got you. I see what you're doing there. All right. Well, we'll be back to talk about these either Saturday night or probably more likely Sunday morning. Best way to get that, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell a friend if you don't mind. That helps us out. For Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. This is Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.